Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to make a quick announcement before we start our official service this morning. Ed Haynes, our tech person, had an emergency, so we do not have a camera person, which means for celebrations and sorrows, if you are able, please walk to the front. We'll have a mic here since we can't do the cameras all over the congregation today. If you have a need and you need it to come to you, Mr. Bill Reynolds at the front here will be happy to bring you the microphone. I'm sorry? The camera monitor.
Our opening song this morning will be Spirit of Life. Please stand if you are able. You may be seated. Thank you. Okay, this is the official good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Venice, also known as UCOV. I am Serena Canarelli, a member of the Board of Trustees here at UCOV, where we strive to be the beacon of liberal religion on Florida's South Coast. As stated in our mission statement, we are a welcoming community and caring community for those seeking spiritual growth, meaning in life, and pursuing justice for all. You are welcome here no matter your skin color, your creed, your ability, class, no matter who you love, your gender expression, political affiliation, or your religious belief. Here, we celebrate our differences and we learn from one another. If you would like to know more about this congregation and its many opportunities for learning, growth, and connection, you can peruse our calendar and announcements on our Facebook page and our webpage at uucov.org. Do we have any visitors today who have not been here previously? Hi. Please, would you like to stand and tell us who you are and where you're from?
Good morning, my name is Bill Trotel, and I've lived in Venice for about the last 2.5 years. I am a New Yorker by birth.
Okay.
And work at the theater. I know Kris, and in fact, we came back from a beautiful trip to New York City just a few weeks ago.
Okay.
It's a pleasure to hear what you just said. I didn't know about this congregation, and I think it's something that really appeals.
Oh, well, welcome. Thank you so much. I am a New Yorker as well, so welcome. Are there any other? Yes. Yay.
I forgive you.
Thank you so much, and welcome. Thank you. We're glad to have you here. Any other new visitors? How about anybody who's been away for a while and returned? No? Okay. And who is leaving? Do we have anybody who's leaving us and going back to their northern home? Okay. Kim, do you want to say goodbye when you're leaving? And Kim.
About the welcome table, and I don't know if this is our last Sunday here or not. My military educated ex-Marine husband, for the first time in 14 years, is allowing us to drive north with our cat without any hotel reservations on the Boston.
We bid you safe travels, Kim and Matt. I hope many of our members who have already left for their northern homes are watching us this morning. Know that we miss you and we welcome your return when you're ready to come back. We'll be here. We have a special guest today that I will be introducing shortly after a few announcements. We hope that you will find something in the service today that speaks to you and maybe lifts you up and challenges you in ways that lead to spiritual reflection and personal growth. Baskets will be passed during, hello, anybody out there passing a basket? Okay. I don't know how many of you noticed in the Venice Gondolier, yesterday's edition, on the religion page, that there was an article on the Buddhist population, the Buddhists, and they had listed many activities that are going to be happening here at UCOV. So I just wanted to remind everybody that there are several different activities that are going on here by the Buddhists, and you're certainly all welcome to attend. There is one this afternoon that I will mention at 4 p.m. Will be hosted by Jim Pierkarski in the Astalinder home, and it will be on Zoom also, so check our calendar and you can enter it through Zoom. On Thursday, May 26th, everybody should have received, I didn't pick one up myself, but the announcements. There are many activities going on in this congregation, and that little pink brochure will tell you all the activities that are happening for the next few weeks. I do want to make a special note of two other ones. On Thursday, May 26th at 10:30, the Bereavement Support Group will be meeting in Astalinder. And also, this announcement comes from Barbara Buring. Barbara, I don't know, are you here this morning? She's our social justice team leader. There will be a special silent vigil to remember the victims of the latest mass gun shooting in our country, the Buffalo shooting, where people were killed or wounded because of the color of their skin while they were in a grocery store. That vigil will be on June 2nd from 4 to 5. And I'm sure that Barbara will have more details to follow. I will be functioning today as the lay leader, and then Kris will take over. So I just want to welcome you all to church today. I'm glad you're here, and we should begin with our wonderful pianist, Prelude, Rotunda in D major by W.A. Mozart. Thank you, Lisa. Our call to worship today are some words from Maya Angelou. History, despite its retching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon the breaking, or you give birth again to the dreams. Okay, I'm going to light the chalice. Maybe? Okay. In a World Filled with Hate by Douglas John Traversa. In a world filled with darkness of ignorance, let us bring the light of reason. In a world filled with despair, may we share the light of hope. In a world filled with the darkness of hate, let us shine the light of love. Our opening hymn will be number 203, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky, 3 verses. Story for all ages.
Good morning again. For those of you who don't know me, I am the Director of Religious Education here. My name is Kathy Avery, and Kris and I are going to do a 2-voice story called Our Principles as a House of Love. I don't know why my heart is racing today. Did you know that love is a really big deal in the Unitarian Universalists? I bet you did, because we just can't stop talking about it.
Love this, side with love of that. Justice is what love looks like in public. We weren't the first ones to say that, Dr. Cornel West was. But we love it so much that we sing it back to him and the universe all the time.
There was once a scientist guy who asked all kinds of people, not just Unitarian Universalists, what they thought of love and how important it was for them. His name was Robert Miller, It turns out that of all the groups he studied, whether religious or not, UUs rank love as a core value more so than others do.
I guess love really is a big deal for UUs.
I want you to remember that because we're going to come back to it.
Another big deal in Unitarian Universalism is our principles. They are a big part of our covenant with each other.
We know they're a big deal because we have so many ways to talk about them, to make sure all the different brains and bodies and ages understand them. There's this way, which is really a list in English.
And then there's this way, which is the list in Spanish.
You can even see our principles in languages like Arabic and Thai.
And then there's this way, which is in a language for kids.
And there's this cool principles wheel by Reverend Ian Riddell and Kimberly Dubuque, which shows not a linear way to think about relationships between the different principles. So many ways.
All of these ways are focused on the 7 principles. When Unitarian Universalism first came into being in 1961, there were only 6 principles. Our 7th principle was proposed in 1985 and added in 1987. One way to imagine our principles was originally suggested by Reverend Barbara Wells Ten Hove. It's called a keystone arch. This is like a doorway through which we enter into what this faith calls us toward.
It's kind of cool because the 4th principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, is at the center, holding together the space for us to balance between each individual's inherent worth and the needs of the great community of which we are part. But do doorways or arches ever exist all by themselves, just floating in air?
Not really, right? They're usually stabilized on the ground, a part of a larger building or structure.
So maybe there's a principle that is still missing?
Just like we figured out 35 years ago when we decided that the 7th principle was missing, maybe the missing principle is the ground plan which the doorway is built.
Maybe it's the whole house of love we are always trying to create for ourselves, each other, and the world.
Maybe if we add an 8th principle, we will get closer to the beloved community we dream about, where there is no oppression of any kind, where we can say Black Lives Matter, but we don't have to because they already do.
I want to be part of building this house of love. Do you?
Okay, we're ready for joys and concerns. And you need to come up. Bill has the microphone. Who has, and remember, joys and concerns, there's 3 things we have to remember. Be brief, personal, and non-political. Okay, celebrations of joy. No one has any joy?
Thank you. I just wanted to let people know if anybody came to the the Power of Song program we did not last Sunday, but the Sunday before, that we ended up mailing a check for $300 to the All Faiths Food Bank for your efforts. So thank you for supporting that.
Any other joys? I'm going to just mention one that will probably get me in trouble later. But yesterday was my husband, Richard Canarelli's, birthday. Happy birthday, Rich. Any other joys? Okay. Any concerns this morning?
I learned 15 minutes before the service started that one of my daughters had a death in the family, which was her ex-husband. Now, I never liked the man. And it's very hard for me to decide just exactly the best way that I can respond to all of that from within myself. And if anybody has suggestions, I'll appreciate it.
Many of us in the nonprofit community this week lost, or I think it was last week, lost a friend who did a lot of the graphic arts for a lot of our publications and served on our boards. And what was so unique about this person is that she brought so much joy to all of us. I loved to have lunch with her. We carried on so that the waitresses were crowded around to see what we were up to. But what was unique about Evelyn, and her name was Evelyn Nelson, is that she was confined to a wheelchair, a big power. It's the biggest wheelchair you ever saw. And she fought this pain for years and years. She was only 57, and she finally said, enough of this, I'm not going to take it anymore, and let herself die. So my hearts and prayers are with her.
I had the opportunity to work with Evelyn on 3 different events, and she was just a wonderful, creative person. I'm so sorry, Barbara, to hear that. I know you were really close with her. Okay, I want to formally introduce Kris, for those of you who don't know him, because he's going to be taking over now. And Krisofer Geddie will be our guest speaker today. He's been here before, so some of you do know him, and some of you know him from his work at Venice Theatre, where he is the general manager and director of diversity. He is also the Venice Theatre's education liaison for area schools and organizations. He's a North Carolina native. He holds a Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree from Mars Hill College in musical theater, and has performed with various theaters and cruise ships worldwide. How many of you have seen him be Coalhouse Walker in Ragtime, the production several years ago at Venice Theatre, which was fantastic? He came to Venice from New York to play Coalhouse Walker in Ragtime, and he found a home here. We're glad to have you, Kris. Thank you. And it's all yours.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for welcoming me back. So, to begin today, I want to obviously say thank you for having me here and have a prayer and meditation for you by Adrienne Marie Brown called This is the Only Moment. I can't stop being in the present, noticing how the past tells me what I should care about, and the future tells me what I should fear, and the past tells me what we must forget, and the future tells me what we must dream. But here I breathe in, noticing the gift I too often take for granted, not knowing how many breaths I have left. I want to spend them being love. I have done so much, so many tasks, but what has mattered most has been the listening to the thirsting dirt, to the spiraling wind in the wake of the murmuration, to the drumbeat of ant feet moving abundance with a million hands, the sacred erotic of pollination, the orgasmic opening of mushrooms, pulling the yes for miles underground, the innocent violence of predators feeding their children, the way the wild waste nothing, the way the cedar gives me permission to pray. I thought someone else had all the instructions, and I, stumbling and fumbling, praying to become worthy, must admit I have been grieving and grieving all I don't know and don't trust, and grieving so deeply a world that is still breathing, anticipating future in spite of my visions. But when I listened, the universe is reminding me I cannot be taken from her. I am never untethered from her roots, never beyond the hold, and nothing is lost. It is lived, and we are not here to win, but to experience love. And those who do not know love are missing life in spite of all other accumulation. And when I listen, the universe is teaching me that control is impossible, and the season will change, and enough is a feeling that cannot be measured, and the small circle is the deepest. And I cannot teach anyone what I have not practiced. And I cannot change anyone but myself. And I will never feel free in a position of demand. And I am already free. And we all are. And when we realize it, we cannot be contained. And we are never I, even when we are lonely, even when we distinctly suffer, even when we distinctly succeed. We are of lineage, of collective, of era, of farmers' hands and strangers' prayers, of singers with their hands thrown back. We're always dancing with our ghost and praying for our great-great-grandchildren. We are always the harvest, and the future is being decided. The future is being practiced. The future is being planted in this breath, in this breath, in this breath. So I breathe in, noticing the gift I too often take for granted, not knowing how many breaths I have left. I want to spend them being love. And now the waltz in A flat, a bronze. Thank you. And now another reading by Adrienne Marie Brown. And this one's called Humans' Core Function is Love. Now, Adrienne Marie Brown is a women's rights activist and a Black feminist based in Detroit. She says, "When we are engaged in acts of love, we humans at our best and most resilient. The love and romance that makes us want to be better people. The love of children that makes us change our whole lives to meet their needs. The love of family that makes us drop everything to take care of them. The love of community that makes us work tirelessly with broken hearts. Perhaps humans' core emotion is love. Love leads us to observe in a much deeper way than any other emotion. If love were the central practice of a new generation of organizers and institutional and spiritual leaders, it would have a massive impact. If the goal was to increase the love rather than winning or dominating a constant opponent, I think we could actually imagine liberation from constant oppression. We would suddenly be seeing everything we do, everyone we meet, not through the tactical eyes of war, but through the eyes of love. We would see that there is no such thing as a blank canvas, an empty land, or a new idea, but everywhere there is complex, ancient, fertile ground full of potential. We would understand that the strength of our movement is in the strength of our relationships, which could only be measured by their depth. Scaling up would mean growing deeper, being more vulnerable, and more empathetic. Thank you. So now, we're going to move on to the reason you asked me here. Today, I want to talk to you about emergent strategy and all we learned in kindergarten. So, good morning again, and thank you for having me back. It's been a while. Well, we've been through some things since I was here last, and it's great to see so many of you and so many familiar faces, and thank you for being here. In life, I try to complete things in the order they appear on my calendar. It's the way I've been trained to operate. So preparing for today hasn't been any different. When I agreed to do this months ago, I figured I'd have plenty of time to get ready and it would all be just fine. If this was a cartoon, you'd now hear the womp, womp, womp. The major things I had on this calendar for this month are now done. My thesis has been completed, accepted, and published. I am proud of it, but I would never repeat that process again. Done. And when it was finished, I decided I needed to think about what I wanted to talk about here today. I knew I 100% did not want to talk about anything academic. I wanted to talk about something that really mattered, something that mattered to me, and something that I hope mattered to you. Now, I'm not saying that my time in grad school did not matter, but I realized had I done grad school in my mid-20s instead of my mid-40s, it would have been a very different thing. But things happen when they're supposed to happen, I've always felt. The world has changed. I changed. The things that would have mattered most to me in the years prior to 2000 didn't matter too much as to me as when I started grad school in 2019. Even those things that mattered in 2019 matter in very drastically different ways now in 2022. Change is constant. Ding, ding, ding. The aha moment. I'd found a topic. I remembered something I'd read a few years prior, and I put it on a little sticky note, you know those piles of sticky notes we have all over the place. I found it. It was an Octavia Butler quote, but came from the Adrienne Marie Brown book called Emergent Strategy, Shaping Change, Changing Worlds. And on that sticky note, it said, all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. And that's all it said. But the simplicity of that quote still strikes me. I've never been a huge science fiction reader, so the works of Octavia Butler are not in my library. But Adrienne Marie Brown is often used in leadership classes, workshops, etc., and she was one of the writers I had to read in grad school. So as much as I didn't want to be academic, there's a bit of it in there. But her book, Emergent Strategy, is not necessarily a how-to manual of life, but it does offer some insight. Have any of you read it, heard of it? Okay, it's a great read, but it's not one that you truly need to read in order. I love books like that. It doesn't matter. So she admits in Facts and Talks that you don't need to read all of the 300-page book. She says read page 15, 41, and 42. That's it. So today, what I'm going to talk about is an extension of page 41 and 42. So if you want to know, that's where it is. It's the principles of emergent strategy. But what is emergent strategy? She says it's the way complex systems and patterns arise out of multiplicity of relatively simple interactions. Some of her examples do help clarify it for me. It's one of those things like birds don't plan to migrate. They don't pack for the weather. They aren't trying to find extra money for the travel fund, and they're not trying to make hotel reservations. They just find it's time to go, and they go. Oak trees don't know they need each other, but they intertwine their roots so they create a support system underground to withstand a hurricane. Emergence, in Brown's context, is that connectivity that exists without us realizing it, whatever we may call it. Her core principles or adages are what I'm talking about here today. It's a book about facilitating love. The 9 points that she brings up are pretty extraordinary when we think of them, and they remind me of the Robert Fulghum book, All I Really Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. But I'll get to that later. The 9, in order, are small is good, small is all. Change is constant. There's always enough time for the right work. There is a conversation in the room that only these people at this moment can have. Find it. Never a failure, always a lesson. Trust the people. Move at the speed of trust. Less prep, more presence. What you pay attention to grows. And those are the 9 sentiments. And we talk about how much we want to change the world. And one of the last times I was here, I talked about the power of hello. This is what she is referring to in small is good, small is all. The power of those one-on-one conversations. We can change ourselves and help change the world, but it's about listening to each other and talking in these small groups. Change is constant. We can't control change, but we can adapt to it and respond intentionally. How she breaks this down is using a Bruce Lee quote. Be like water. It reminds me of something one of my mentors has always said to me. Unlike people, water makes a decision. She talks about, and if you think about water, water will take the shape of any container we put it in. It will go with the flow. But hold it back too long, and the force will move you. Be receptive to change. And I think that's one of the hardest things we all have to understand. It's so odd because we all know change is going to happen, but we will fight to not change. We never have enough time. We say this often, but, as she says, There's always enough time for the right work. When something is meaningful to us, we make the time and are able to say yes, thus saying no to the things that do not matter. There is always enough time for the right work. There's a conversation in the room that only these people at this moment can have. Find it. So I sat with this one for a while. I wasn't sure what she meant by it in the large scale. It's because I was overcomplicating it. It's not that complicated. We're doing it right now. Like minds are here in this room. We all may have had the same thoughts or differing thoughts at some other time, but we all look to others with similar beliefs and thoughts so that we can all collectively come up with better ideas. We don't always succeed in these brilliant ideas. And that is where our next adage comes. Never a failure, always a lesson. We learn from our mistakes just as much as we learn from our successes. We have to be willing to take the risk. With taking the risk comes trusting people. When we're working together, we have more to work with. And if we're trusting of the people, they will invest in the project, social movement, or similar thing that we're working on. And the more people work together, the easier it is for people to work together. That's when we have to learn, and we work hard at this at the theater. It's finding folks that have like beliefs and want to come together to work with us, to volunteer, to do different things. And sometimes they're strangers, but if you bring people together and they start talking, they'll find the things they have in common, and they work together. So with all these adages she has, examples or principles or whatever you want to call them, they move at the speed of trust. So what that says is we are connecting our experiences and working together to build a sense of trust. You can't rush it, but we can trust the process. One-on-one trust builds building groups and builds that group trust. And I know some of these seem very optimistic. And like my sister always says, Kris, you're going to that crazy place again. But I say, what do we have to lose? One of my favorite principles of Brown is less prep, more presence. In business, we have these great habits of prepping agendas and making notes about what we need to do. Yes, those are important. But when we prepare too much, we limit the possibilities. We don't leave room for growth. This is another we think about often in the theater. I don't know how many of you have been involved in theater at some point in your life, but you know we go to auditions. We have monologues and songs. So a person comes into an audition for a role that they think they're perfect for. They have the monologue and the song perfected, and they do it, but if it's perfect, it doesn't leave room for the director to direct them. You can't live the moment if you've over-prepared for the moment. The final point she makes in the principles of emergent strategy is what you pay attention to grows. As we listen to each other and truly listen to someone talking, we begin to open up more. The trust builds. When we treat each other with care and a love, we grow. Now, I know all these things seem like common sense things, and I felt so too. But sometimes we just need to hear them again. We neglect to love ourselves, and love each other. Now, I'm sure you're wondering about how I was going to get into the kindergarten part. But you may have realized it about halfway through. These things Kris saying seems familiar. Womp, womp, womp. As I was reading emergent strategy and thinking of how we could apply these things in everyday life, I remembered the message I left with my high school graduation class and the message I left with my undergrad class, it seemed only appropriate that I leave the same message with you. Yes, I thought about telling you all about my thesis and the things I discovered and the way things will work. But some of what you've heard in these principles, 9 principles of emergent strategy, that's what it is. So today I say simply lead with love. It can be the hardest thing to do at all times. But remember, small is all, small is good. And I want to close with basically another version of everything I just said, but it's helped me through most things in life, and I hope it means something to you. It is Robert Fulghum's opening essay from the book of the same name. All I really need to know I learned in kindergarten. It has proven true to me through most things in my life. So listen. All I really need to know about how to live and what to do and how to be, I learned in kindergarten. Wisdom was not at the top of the graduate school mountain, but there in the sand pile at Sunday school. These are the things I learned. Share everything. Play fair. Don't hit people. Put things back where you found them. Clean up your own mess. Don't take things that aren't yours. Say you're sorry when you hurt someone. Wash your hands before you eat. Flush. Warm cookies and cold milk are good for you. Live a balanced life. Learn some and think some and draw and paint and sing and dance and play and work every day some. Take a nap every afternoon. When you go out into the world, watch out for traffic. Hold hands and stick together. Be aware of wonder. Remember the little seed in the styrofoam cup. The roots go down and the plant goes up, and nobody really knows how or why, but we're all like that. Goldfish and hamsters and white mice and even the little seed in the styrofoam cup, they all die. So do we. And then remember the Dick and Jane books and the first word you learned, the biggest word of all, look. Everything you need to know is there somewhere. The golden rule and love and basic sanitation, ecology and politics and equality and sane living. Take any of these items and extrapolate it into sophisticated adult terms and apply it to your family life, or your work, or your government, or your world, and it holds true and clear and firm. Think about what a better world it would be if the whole world, had cookies and milk about 3 o'clock every afternoon, and then lay down on our blankies and took a nap. Or if all governments had a basic policy to always put things back where they found them and to clean up their own mess. And it is still true, no matter how old you are, when you go out into the world, it's best to hold hands and stick together. So thank you for inviting me back to talk with you again. I feel much better knowing that each of you are out in the world. Adrian Brown closes with this statement, and I can't say it better, so this is about the preciousness of time. It's limited and it's sacred, friends. And everything we do, every single thought and action and relationship and institution, everything is practice ground. So practice emergent strategy, or everything you learned in kindergarten. But understand, it is a way to practice love. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And now, we'll be singing verses 1, 2, and 3 of Amazing Grace. And the benediction is, "May you be changed," by Emily Richards. May you leave this time together changed. May the promises you have made to yourself about who you want to be feel closer to the reality of who you are right now. May you share that feeling of transformation wherever you go. May it spread into every word, deed, thought, and interaction until we're all changed, transformed, and transforming together, becoming our better selves. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we are together again. Now, reprise of 123, Spirit of Life.